Welcome to Notability, a primer. In this video, we'll become more familiar with the Notability app, the one which you'll be using to take much of your digital notes. The point of this and other primer videos is to get you familiar with the look and layout of an application so that you can use it more effectively. You can always come back and use this video and many times as you need in order to understand it. So let's get started. The first thing you should be familiar with is how to find Notability in the first place. On the left is a picture of the icon for Notability, and on the right is what it will look like when you open it on your iPad. All you have to do is tap your finger on the icon, and we're off to the races. When you open up Notability, it will look something like this. Now, I've played around with my options a bit to make it look a certain way, so it may not be exactly like yours, but all the pieces are the same. If you'd like to play around with your settings, you tap the gear icon at the bottom of the screen. The question mark next to the gear is your user's guide. So this is the programmers of Notability. They made a complete guide to the whole program. So if you have the time to look over that and you have a very specific question, that's where you can find it. So right here on the question mark. Next to that on the bottom the bottom left is this eye icon, which is how you can get in touch with the company that makes Notability if you have a suggestion for them. Probably would suggest not using that unless you ask a teacher's permission. Now let's take a look at the buttons at the top of the screen. This is your Create New Document button. It's the pencil with the blue rectangle. It should be pretty easy to find. Next to that, just to the left, is this icon which is a rectangle with an arrow coming into it. I like to think of the rectangle as your iPad, and the arrow is something that's either going into it or coming out of it. This is your import button. It imports anything from outside Google Drive. Outside Notability, including Google Drive. If you need to search for something, you can click the magnifying glass icon. To the left of that, we have a couple of very important buttons: the plus, the export button, and edit. I'm going to start with the export button. The export button takes something from Notability and sends it to somewhere else. For instance, Google Drive, which means you can send anything you've written in Notability to Google Drive to share with your teachers and peers. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of Notability. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our notes. Notes fit into subjects. Subjects are these colored bars here. And subjects are divided by dividers. The dividers are the clear boxes that are not colored here. So in order to make new ones, you need to add them. And to add them, you just press the plus button. So let's find out what happens when you click that button. By tapping the plus button, I can create a subject or a divider. The subject, again, is the brightly colored bars, and the dividers are the clear bars. Now, if I want to make a new subject, I just tap that and then title it using my keyboard, and the same thing with the divider. Now, in creating all these things, you may make an organizational mistake, but that's okay. That's what the edit button is for. Let's see what happens when we click that. When we press the edit button, we notice that it changes to the done button, which is the same button we press when we're finished editing. Also, there are two new icons next to the Done button. That's Delete and Copy. Also, a change is that all the subjects and dividers have 3 lines next to them. By tapping and dragging on those 3 lines, you can move categories and dividers around as you see fit. And when you're done, you hit the Done button, or edit again. Now let's see what happens when we create a new document. When you open up a new document in Notability, this is what it looks like. Starting at the top left, let's go over these icons. The dark arrow with the rectangles, I think they're supposed to be books. That is how you get back to your main menu. Next to that, we have our export button. So when we write something or draw something or whatever, we want to put it into Google Drive, that's what we would click. You can send this document to another place, like Google Drive, for example. Moving further to the left, we have the undo button. This is useful when you make a mistake, and you will make a mistake. We all do. In the middle are your output options, your input options. You have the T for typing, the pencil for drawing. This is a highlighter right here. Erase and cut and paste. There's also a microphone icon. This you can tap and record your voice or others' voices. If you are going to record someone's voice, perhaps even a teacher during a lecture, you should always ask permission when recording. It is wrong on a lot of levels to record someone without their knowledge. Then we have this plus icon. This is how you can add extra outside things to your Notability document. For example, there's an option to bring a photo from your camera roll, an option to take a photo and put it right into Notability, and a bunch of other options as well that we'll play around with once we get more familiar. The wrench icon here are your options. And the stack of rectangles, these are supposed to be the pages of your document, will show you a thumbnail image of all the pages. That's if you have a multi-page document in the first place. Moving down, you can see that there is a heading. By tapping the heading on the left, you can rename the document as you see fit. And by tapping on the date on the right, you can adjust that as well. Now, there are two important icons on the bottom of the screen: the magnifying glass and the hand. These two icons will make your job of writing with a stylus in Notability so much easier. So let's see what happens when you click them. Here's an example of a document I made last year. On the bottom, you notice something is slightly different. I have tapped the hand icon, and in its place comes up a transparent bar. That's from clicking the hand icon. This zone does not respond to touch. It's there so you can write while resting your hand on the screen at the same time. Now let's see what happens when we click that magnifying glass. Notice at the top of the screen here, there is a bright box. On the bottom of the screen, everything in the box is magnified. This makes it easier to write smaller and more neatly. This is the only way I can get my writing to look like it does in this document, neat and with multiple sizes. The order that you press these buttons are important. You must push the hand first and then the magnifying glass if you want to write with the bar at the bottom that doesn't respond to touch, and you want to write magnified like that. If we look at the bottom half of the screen, we notice that some new options are over to the right. These arrows here move this box right and left, respectively. Also, this button here that looks like an enter sign will move the box down and all the way over to the left, so you can start a new line. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped you get better acquainted with the many buttons of Notability. We're going to be practicing with Notability all year, and we're going to be learning new stuff and get into more specifics as we move along. But this is just designed to get you familiar with it, so I hope this helped. See you soon, kids!